you guys have been covering the Epstein case more closely than so very many other outlets. And from, when it first started to creep into the conversation. And that, I think, is probably going to make it harder for Trump in general to keep getting away among like the 30% of independents in the country, among that group. I mean, not talking about the Trump base, but among the 30% of independents who actually really do care about corruption and liked him because he was anti-establishment. So the question I'm going to pose to both of you after watching this Hakeem Jeffries clip is basically, can Democrats capitalize on this politically? You guys have both done amazing stuff on the substance and the substantive issues of justice that are involved here, and people can go watch that. But let's stick on the politics and roll S6 here of Hakeem Jeffries.
Why are Democrats just looking at this and pushing for this right now and not really during the Biden administration?
I support transparency in terms of the American people. The far right, Donald Trump, right-wing conspiracy theorists and others are the ones who have put this Jeffrey Epstein thing in the public domain. Let's be clear about that. No one looking at the facts disputes that. This isn't anything that any of us as House Democrats have been focused on ever in terms of trying to fan the flames of what may or may not happen. But once it has broken into the public domain, and there's a clear desire on behalf of the American people to get more information, then the right thing to do is to present the facts and the evidence to the American people.
Okay, so this guy, I refer to him as the unofficial mascot of the show because I'll often feature segments of Hakeem Jeffries doing just hilarious things, stupid things. He's just so bad at politics for someone who is now the House Minority Leader. Ro Khanna, the three of us talk to him regularly. Ro Khanna has a bill with Thomas Massie that there should be pressure put on Republicans to vote on. And I'm curious to get both of your takes on that. But him saying Democrats had nothing to do with this. Democrats
no interest in this.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's an indictment of you if that's true. Like, what
Why
the
is he saying that?
And Nancy Pelosi, she called it a distraction. It's like, what is wrong with you people? And look, will they be able to quote unquote capitalize? Like, I think that, Trump's approval ratings are way down. I saw with young people, he's fallen off by like 54 points. I mean, in some ways they don't have to do much because if you're just not the Republicans and not Trump right now, in some ways there's going to be a backlash and a reaction. But it's like, it should be such a layup to tie together the fact that, okay, you've got all of these, that this administration is being run as basically a billionaire oligarch elite protection racket. And guess what? Jeffrey Epstein fits right into that story. And, oh, look at this. They were best friends. Trump and Epstein themselves were best friends for a decade. So, gee, wonder why he's so concerned about these files being released. Like, it's not hard to put these pieces together and say they cut health insurance for millions of people to give a tax cut to the rich. He gave Elon Musk, his biggest donor, free reign over the federal government and gutted all these programs that are critical for working class people. I mean, and then you have the Epstein piece, which again is just protecting the rich and powerful people who have never been held accountable in these cases, one of whom is probably the president of the United States. It's not hard to put the pieces together, but for people like Hakeem Jeffries, who also is interested in that elite protection racket and it's core to his politics, judging by the, places that he predominantly gets donations from and the ideologies that he protects, they don't actually want to connect those dots. And so until the Democrats decide whether they actually want to be a party of the people and deliver for people and, embrace figures like Zoran Mamdani, who are speaking to those needs and concerns, until they decide, they're going to have to make a choice between that and between whatever the hell it is that you just showed me, Emily, because you are not going to, you may win the midterms, you may, I'm not going to say you never win an election again, but if you actually want to build a meaningful majority in this country and regain credibility, Hakeem Jeffries needs to go, Chuck Schumer needs to go, they need to completely change course, and they need to take a hard stand against their own donor class.
And Saagar, I'm tossing that to you with the added question of if what you're hearing from Trump world, you're very well sourced, suggests they know there's potential for Dems to kind of come in and swoop into one of their key I guess, issue areas.
Actually, I haven't heard anything, and that's very telling to me because they know. Like, they know it's a problem. And this is actually where the people around him, they know, not just know, they capitalize on this to their own political benefit. This is an issue where it's actually solely on the president and how he thinks about it. And then for a variety of reasons, we can all speculate. Maybe it's a lot of stuff that's come out recently about his relationship with Epstein and the letter or whatever, although I'm sure, the MAGA people don't want to hear it. They think it's fake. That's fine. Look, you put the letter out. You can look at all the other stuff, including the video. That's part of it. It could be just I don't know, intelligence connections, either to Israel, to the United States, or various different foreign governments. But for some reason, Trump himself has seized as to where he wants to be. And I have not really heard a lot of, quote, reach out or whatever from that community around him, because they don't have anything. There's no spin here. They're apoplectic, or they're despondent because they actually believed and wanted something out of the story. And then all of a sudden there's been like a record scratch move in terms of the way Trump has behaved. But to the Democratic question, this is where you have to separate, the Democratic leader from aspiring Democratic politicians. Like, I think there's a reason. Look, I mean, to the extent that podcasts and all this other stuff matters, Theo Vaughn is out there tweeting about Ro Khanna, right? And the Epstein bill. Right.
Yeah, true.
And Ro was just on the Flagrant podcast, and Ro
he was on Theo's show too, wasn't he?
Right. So it's like, look, is Ro Khanna going to win the primary? I don't know. Okay. I have no idea. But like, what I do know is that, to the extent that audience, which was very impactful for Donald Trump in getting elected, they still care a lot about the story. I've done 2 major appearances on Epstein. I think the collective between those 2 is like 4 or 5 million views on YouTube.
It's crazy.
Maybe even more, actually, probably tens of millions if you add the podcast downloads from all of those appearances. And those are in very MAGA places. Can we agree on Tucker Carlson on the Flagrant show at the very least? So plus, if you add together our own show, I mean, we're literally talking about tens of millions of people who are checked in on the story. So I don't think it's going away, but I do think it's uncomfortable for a lot of the way that these Democratic elites and establishment people are, either because they don't have the language or the knowledge. Like he said, he's like, oh, the Democrat. It's like, no, to be able to say this stuff credibly, you have to be able to call out everybody. And that's just obvious to me that like these, the more Democratic Party leaders and all of that, like that's just not how you get to where you are, the Hakeem Jeffries, and all these other people. It's really instructive to look at Jeffries and Pelosi, like New York and California. Those are machine party states where you're knife fighting each other, like your own Democratic colleagues, as opposed to, let's say, beating the other side. Like you're kind of coming up within the system to become the eventual leader. And Chuck Schumer is another example of this, where I think you really need somebody who is much more willing to call out Democratic establishment and as well like your own party, and as to be able to give you the credibility to talk about it to everybody. That's just what I think.
I think Hakeem can do it. I think he has it in him. Kidding, of course.